Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to StrangeCast, Player One Visual's Life is Strange focused podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Adnan. My co-host Adam is here.
I am here. I feel weird making a joke because we're about to talk something not jokey.
Yeah, it's a very serious one because obviously this is an emergency StrangeCast per se. This is like a scheduled one because obviously, as you can see, we're wearing the same clothes as the last Record Journal episode because we decided to record back to back. Because this is a little supplement episode for you guys because the next StrangeCast is a little bit of a while away, and there was some big news that happened as well. And I think we need to kind of.
I hope I get some overtime pay on this.
Yes, you will. You will be paid in cookies, and those cookies will emerge in about 50 years from now, and you might not get them at all. You never know.
Yikes!
Well, you ain't getting anything. That's simple as that. all you get is my admiration and sincerity for turning up here, which I appreciate. But yeah, before we start as well, if you are new here, as always, please do consider dropping subscribe on the channel, turn notifications, like the video, share with your friends, help support the channel, helps keep up to date with the channel. StrangeCast is available on all podcast services, so you can check us out on Spotify with the video version, Apple Podcasts, we're available on everything, so do check us out there. You can rate us, download episodes. We've seen incredible success with StrangeCast this year. We had our Spotify Wrap, so thank you so much for the support with that. We have about 4.9 rating now as well, 36 ratings, so thank you so much for that. Please do rate us. It helps give us visibility. And also as well, we've got about 266 followers, so thank you so much for that. Again, the success in this podcast has been crazy this year. Me and Adam were looking at some of the stats from Spotify Wrap, and it's insane to see it. Like, we're in the top 10% of video podcasts, which are insane on Spotify. So thank you so much for, again, all that support. Obviously, it's a very serious topic we're going to talk about here because we're just using this as a supplement episode. It might be about 30 minutes-ish or so, but we thought we'd kind of bring it to you as soon as possible. However, Adam, before we start as well, let's just address one thing, because I think people took things out of context on one topic that we talked about last week.
Oh my God, here we go.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to address this with you, if anything, because let's just preface this as well. When Adam said, kill off Chloe Price in the last episode, he did not specifically say, let's make a bigger mess of this game and kill her and make something else with that. His implication was to kill off Chloe Price. It was to leave her behind and dig your heels in and not mess with it more. That was what he was implying by that, because I think people have taken it out of context a little bit.
Anytime, and I was telling this to Adnan before that like most of the time, I'll say 90% of the time, because it can happen like genuinely. But anytime you say like, oh, a character's gone, fans go, oh, boo. Have you ever seen something that like they're writing, they bring back a character, we're like, no, the fans want it back. Oh, she actually survived the surgery. And it's just so disingenuous. And when the character does come back, they don't know how to write for that person. I'll put it this way, right? When fan asks for Star Wars Unleashed 2, you know, like, oh, this deserves a sequel, blah blah blah. I have already spoiled the ending of Force Unleashed. If I said like, oh, if characters bring it back, remember Force Unleashed 2, dude?
Oh God, I do. Yeah.
I'm putting it that way. So when I say, you know, like leave it as is, it's just because writing for something like that, when you have a team that didn't know how to write for her in the beginning, you're going to be disappointed how they write for her if she's alive and well and in the game, you know? So I don't know, leave it as is, dig your cleats in, you know, this is the bed you made. See, it's the game that you like.
That's a good game, though. That's a very good game, that. But no, I just wanted to specifically clarify it because that's why I never batted an eye on the conversation on the podcast. But it wasn't, he didn't say, let's get a shotgun and kill her or something. It was like, when he says kill her off, it means leave her be. Because there are certain points with which I agree with you as well, because I think you could still do it. But then also as well, you do have to think, when you're like, what's the worst that could possibly happen? There's always something worse that could happen from that. So I just wanted to clarify it because I know some people were commenting on it, and I just batted my eye because like, he's not said it the way you're thinking he's saying, where he's like, kill her off. It's like, he's just saying, dig your heels in and just don't bother with it. Because if you try and bring her back, like, it's going to cause more problems. No, it's fair. It's a fair comment. It's like, you're fair because in itself as well. It's like, as I said, you're not making a tangent plot point.
No,
where like Max is going chasing after her and shooting her and killing it. It's like you're just saying leave her be because at this point, we're going to cause a bigger mess, if anything. So it's a fair point to make. And I just wanted to address it because it's like we won't get to it until the episode after. There'll be a StrangeCast the week after, which is our proper StrangeCast episode. A bit different as well in terms of the formatting, so you'll have to bear with us. But Adam, that's not the topic this one. This is a little bit of a discussion about some big news that happened on Friday, which was that Deck 9 has announced layoffs, which I think that we need to talk about here. So I'm going to just pull up a little bit of things. And we're recording the 7th of December, just remember for context, if anything else does pop up. So as you can see here as well, Deck 9 released a statement on its social media feeds, all of them as well. It says here, today we are sad to share the news that we must say goodbye to some of our talented team members. This was an extremely difficult decision, reflects the challenging times many companies in our industry are currently facing. We are extremely grateful to every individual who has dedicated their hard work, passion, and commitment to making transformative entertainment with us. To those of you who are leaving the studio due to these changes, thank you for sharing your talent with us. We are proud of what we were able to accomplish together, and we are committed to supporting you in the transition any way we can. To the community, we ask you for your support and understanding during this difficult time. That was Mark Leons, who's the CEO of Deck 9 Games, in a statement. And thank you for that statement, how it's written as well. The formatting and the font and the background is perfect.
This is layoff number 3 in past 2 years, if I'm correct.
Yes, second layoff this year as well.
Second layoff this year.
Yeah, it's about 20% of the staff they cut earlier this year. This is the second layoff in 2024. There's one in 2023 when The Expanse was being released around that time frame. So, yeah, this is the third layoff that's happened in that picture. I think there's been another one in that period, in that realm of about 4 or so in like the space of 3 years or something like that. So
insane,
it is quite brutal. So, Adam, we're going to Twitter again here as well. This is from... Oh, look, it is. It's me.
Yeah.
I'm not taking full credit for this. Other people have spotted it. But the one big thing that came from this was a big spot. And we have no complete, full confirmation about this yet. Let's just clarify that very quickly as important. But this is from the LinkedIn profile of Jonathan Stauder, who was the director of Life is Strange Double Exposure. That profile has been updated. If you're wondering as well, I'm very carefully wording this as well because, again, it could be anyone that goes on his profile and changes, etc. We're being very careful with this as well. It appears that Stauder has left Deck 9 as well, as you can see in the graphic there as well, of his experience. He was game director from March 2021 to December 2024 at Deck 9. He also was cinematic director as well, previously at Deck 9 there, as you can see. Then also as well, a bit of digging on there as well. Lauren Parker, who's a producer, John Welter, who's a tech artist, Justin Mayo, who's a senior software engineer, Tim Healy, who's senior QA testers, part of the QA testers. That was their specific roles in the Life is Strange Double Exposure credits. They have all been laid off as well. They've all confirmed that in LinkedIn posts. Just a couple of things, my little beats I had here as well. I kind of like just put in a series of tweets, but I just wanted to highlight this one, which is the main thing more than anything else is that I put here as well, which said, ultimately, another major point that seems to be forgotten by some people is that human beings have lost their jobs before Christmas. In an industry that is so cutthroat, game developers don't just jump back on their feet. It can take ages to get back in the studio. And whether or not you like Double Exposure, at the end of the day, a lot of people were just doing their jobs. A lot of unsung heroes worked on this game. Those people had no say on the red tape around this project. It's important to remember that. And I wanted to make that very clear because some of the behavior online has been absolutely atrocious, and it kind of is reflective of you as a person, because you can dislike the game as one, you can criticize it all you want, but and people seem to completely lost the entire point of that last conversation.
In my rant, when I was just about like my written rant, when I was ranting about, I was like, my very first thing is like, hey, these are people. Like I'm disagreeing with them artistically, but they're still people. No threats, nothing like that. Just artistically speaking.
When John Stauder jokes about having a mortgage on like that PAX West panel, and he's like saying like, you hope we make more games, etc. That man still has a mortgage at the end of the day. He's still a game developer. Whether you agree with the direction or not, that's a different story. Man's a man, developer's a developer. I've differences with John Stauder in terms of his creative vision, his other things, but I don't go attacking him and stuff like that about it. And again, as well, all of you, barring a couple of people, mainly one commenter from DJ Howard, who said, I kind of get the understanding of the context, because the entire point of our last conversation, our main topic, and I even sprung that on Adam as well, was that you still didn't understand the ending point, that it's not just Deck. If Deck 9 did not make this game, another developer would have done. That doesn't disregard, for example, bad writing. But if Square Enix wanted Chloe Price out of the game, they're getting her out of the game. Unless someone pushes back and makes enough reason to give justification, they decided that. So ultimately, even if you go after Deck 9, as some people have done in the comments and stuff, and said, this is this and this and that, that doesn't achieve anything. Like,
who owns the IP, Adnan?
But do you really like hit yourself against the wall repeatedly?
But no,
You're
that's
like,
I'm agreeing to your point. Like when
Yeah.
people are just saying like it's like, well, it's not Square's decision. Who owns the IP? Who
IP.
owns the IP? So like it doesn't matter. Like you're saying like, oh, Deck Nine did this. Who owns the IP? Like they make the final call, dude. Like honestly.
I might get it tattooed on my forehead for every future episode because, again, it's not to disregard writing or quality or etc.
Sure.
Those are issues that are Deck Nine's fault then, because they are a contractor, they're a developer, etc. But the responsibility, the sole responsibility, and a lot of things that you might not have liked were creative decisions from Square Enix, among many other things. Like they have an overarching say on a lot of stuff as well, because obviously, again, they own the IP. Taking Adam's words, they own the IP. So all I'm saying is, and you have your own accountability for actions and stuff online. Show a bit of decorum, a bit of bit of dignity to other people. Like these people lost their jobs. Like the QA tester and all these other people aren't going to be the people that you can kind of go after and try and suggest something. Like this is in the holiday season, but ultimately we kind of wanted to do this episode because we're talking about the layoffs because I didn't expect this. I had heard whispers about like the uncertainty around the future of the studio, around
You never
potential
expect
layoffs.
3 layoffs in 2 years. 3.
No, but obviously, like there was some things that I heard about like layoffs potentially happen, not like substantial, being like this is going to happen. There was like whispers of like kind of things of ideas like, we're a little bit like uncharted territory, not just like Deck Nine, it's like also just general studios as well, as we've seen with Don't Nod, for example. So I was kind of sitting there like, oh, okay, like I think maybe they might be able to weather the storm. But the big one is Jonathan Stauder going, because that's a big one that we've seen so far. He was the game director on this game as well. There's more to that, but people will never know that as well for the sake of it. But he was a game director on this. But it's like, that's a big one, that, because it changes everything. Because I think Square Enix is well aware now what's happened here. I think like I've been very positioning myself in different ways on the stance of like the conversations. I saw some people saying like he's flip-flopping and he's saying if he's right, he's right, he's wrong, he's wrong. No, these are ever-changing climates of a conversation of a game. It's like, this is what happens. Pivots can happen, and they can happen left field, and they can happen really radically. I think Square Enix has now really woken up to the reality of what's happened, because Double Exposure has clearly not sold well enough. Clearly not well sold enough. I know that now as well. I'm very much in a good position to know that this game has not sold well. And it's like, this is a clear indication of it, because they are now going to probably be like thinking, like that focus group that's happening in London the week this podcast comes out, I think it's this week. That'll be an interesting one to see what actually happens, and if there's any feedback they actually properly take on there, because Stauder going is a big indictment for things. I think in itself as well, let's just clarify, Stauder still needs to confirm this himself. I want to hear from John Stauder saying that he's left in some capacity, he's no longer on Twitter, but we still need verifiable information that he's confirmed his departure because of the layoffs, and also him moving into another job or some kind of capacity. God only knows, it's only LinkedIn, it's a professional platform, but anything can happen in between that. But I'm just curious about what happens here as well, because the future of the Life is Strange series is now really in a precarious situation, Adam. This was a mess, as I've said before. It's fixable. How you fix it, that's something I wouldn't want to do, because again, the problem, the conversation, we talked about it time and time again, red tape, bureaucracy, all this stuff. You can sit there, write a comment in the comment if you want, and tell me how you'd fix this. And all I have to turn around and say, well, we don't like that idea. What are you going to do next? It was the entire point of like why I was antagonizing you with that entire conversation.
During our phone call roleplay.
Yeah, but you in context, people might not know about it as well. Like sometimes you might not know the topic ideas. Like I might spring it on you, and then that one was there, but I never sprung onto you the end of that conversation. So that was the entire point. It was a setup for a 50-minute discussion, which achieved nothing, because I was trying to show you that basically you could paint the greatest sequel since in the history to fix this game. All Square turns around and says no.
Yeah.
And then what do you do next? And then what do you do next? Everyone thinks they're a writer until they get into those rooms. Like, I'm not excusing bad writing, by the way. Let me just.
It's not even just writing, but like anybody that you have a board that you have to answer to. If you've never worked a job that you had to answer to a board, like I don't think it's a secret that I was a youth pastor for about 8 years. The last church I worked for, I had to answer to technically 4 different boards. 4 different boards before I did any moves. And I had to like pretty much play politics just to get I forget one change they did, but I remember there was changes that like it took a month just to get the process going. A month. So like imagine that. So a lot of these people are just like working jobs that's, you know, you can just pretty much do whatever you want, you know,
Yeah.
like an office work, but like until you're answering to a board of directors, you don't know.
No, you don't. Like I've said it before, like because I have no narrative experience. There'll be a lot of people who have better literary experience. I don't sit here on a purposeful way saying I can write the sequel better than other people because I have at least good knowledge of like learning about game development, how people work within the realms of it, and more so in the terms of investigating it with publishers working with them. It's not as clean cut and precise as people think it is. So it's so easy when people are like, well, you just have to do this, and it's like, well, did you think about this, and did you think about that?
Yeah.
These all come into play with it. So it's the same with like this kind of thing with double exposure. People are like, well, you could have just done this, and you could have just done this, and you could have just done this. And it's like, well, Deck 9 could have just done that. It's like, no, these things, like these games are so just hard to make. And again, this isn't a defense about Deck 9 making double exposure because we've talked about this in the review. We've been very critical of in the review about the game. The game is not good enough. It can be fixed in some capacity in a sequel. Yeah, it depends on, as I said before, it depends on if fan feedback is properly taken on board from the publisher, if the publisher is willing to pivot on the direction, and then if the creative team is willing to be overhauled, because I think the creative team does need to be overhauled. It's nothing personal against those developers, but they have boxed themselves into corners, whether that's through the red tape that's been told or if it's just their own hand writing certain plot points in this game. We're in a mess here. And this is an even bigger mess now that you cut down studio. Again, it affects morale at people in the studio. It's now impacted certain things on it. These are all conversations to be had. But the news of this layoffs was unexpected because for me, it changes everything. It changes absolutely everything about where the franchise goes from here because it feels like Square, and I still need to look into this, it feels like Square is now going to make a pivot, a big one as well. Like, that's my belief, if anything. I don't think that they're going to commit onto the path that they were going to because I've been very careful before where people like saying, as like, well, Square seems hell-bent because they've done all these other procedural changes as we've seen with the game, how it came out and the way it did. I think they're going to start pivoting now. I think that they've realized like what the pivot is remains to be seen, but I think they're going to pivot if anything because that's
well definitely. I think if it is true that Stauder is gone, I think that's like an indication that nope, we're pivoting.
Yeah, it's going to have to be because like think about it as well. Here's a big one because we'll talk about it. I've got a big conversation I want to plan with you about on StrangeCast on the actual episode. What's one thing that's been really lacking at like Deck 9? We talked about it on the last Lost Records Journal episode where you said about I trust Michel Coe's creative vision. I trust Luke Bargados because he's doing this. Who at Deck 9 are the key figures anymore? Because since like Zach Garris left, I remember talking to people, Zach Garris was considered like a genius within Deck 9. He was considered a really creative, artistic person, and he was held in high respects outside of the IGN hit piece. The IGN hit piece is other things. Stop taking it as gospel. I'll say this now. There's other things that you need to look into the details of that are still kind of like, you know, you need to kind of challenge certain status quos about it as well. Work culture is work culture. I've been in journalism rooms as well in the past, in my entire life. You know how much like shitstorms that happen in there and the way that people act and behave. This guy works in a kitchen. If you see those movies, you see Gordon Ramsay, it's not that far from
have
the
you
truth
seen
of
the
what
bear
actually happens. Yeah, have you seen the bear? There, go put the bear on. You'll see what his experience is day to day when he's coming on podcasts and how he feels. This is the reflection of it. But when Garris left, not that many people were left on that project in the Life is Strange team that can have a creative vision to take this project on. I think there's one person, but we'll come on to that in the next episode. But they're lacking sore figures. So even with John Stauder as well, Stauder was overseeing a project which was steeped in like mayhem, if anything. The way that I've seen things, the way I've heard things, I was kind of sitting there thinking like, hang on a minute, what? It's like, how is this happening? It feels like he never had control of the project. In contrast, whether you like True Colors or not, Garris had control of the project. You could see that the project came out the way that it did. It came out within some kind of good shape and blah, blah. It's the highest selling Life is Strange at like launch in those charts and stuff that they were saying like in terms of dollar return. And it's like, that's important like to have in the creative process of it. So now Stauder going from the creative team is a big one. It's still to figure out who else has gone from this, how many people have been affected by it, because Deck 9 is probably down to about 100 employees now, if not below it, I think, based on it. But I've just seen things, because I've seen like one Reddit user claim the fact that the sequel's been made. And I'm like, Do you have any awareness of what it takes to make a video game? Do you really think that Deck 9 is making two AAA video games with 100 people? And even with Square Enix's external studios, they're going to make simultaneous Life is Strange games.
If Ubisoft can do it, why can't Deck 9?
Oh, well, Deck 9's just opened a second mocap studio, because apparently they're one mocap studio which can only even that end sequence at the end of Double Exposure. Do you think all the actors were in the same room on the mocap set doing it?
Yeah.
Have you ever watched any of my interviews that I've done with the actors? Even that entire scene when Alex does the tribute to Gabe's death and all the town people there. Do you think all the actors were there doing that? Because if you watch all the interviews on Life After Strange and everything else that we've done on this channel, you'll understand the mocap technical process, which was the fact that not all the actors were there. They have limited equipment. They have limited things. Mocap isn't just as like this kind of like glamorized AAA thing that you have in your head that Rockstar's telling you. But this is the huge one for me. When I saw Stauder has like updated, or Stauder's LinkedIn profile has been updated, and again, we still need confirmation on certain details and we might get it. That's the big one for me, because you've just lost the game director on this game. And that's a big pivot, because there was different things that I knew about this project, which involved Stauder going forward, etc. like that. These are all changed now. Everything has changed even from Square Enix perspective. We'll have to see more from them and see what actually happens. If you have taken part in that focus group, please do not respond in the comments telling me that I'm wrong because you have signed an NDA. Don't be stupid, because if you want to get a bit of bragging rights over me, fair play, but I'm not the one that's going to get in all kinds of legal trouble. You will. So let's be very clear about that. It's just I'm looking for your best interest here, because focus groups have different implications as well. This one will be very interesting to see what's actually said in it and what is covered in there. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really curious, Adam, about how you feel about the entire layoffs, because this was really just, I was kind of like, this is not a good sign, this as well, because this is a studio as well. I think people kind of forget about it. Deck 9, from what I know and have seen as well, they want to seek their own independence in the same way that Don't Nod is doing, in terms of that they want, different games to be made. They have different teams in there. They have a future outside of Life is Strange games. But again, people kind of like glam it up, being like, well, Don't Nod did it, and look how that's going. I'm like, look how it's going at Don't Nod. Look at how the difficulties that they're going through. It's not just as simple as like, oh, we'll see cat independence go away. Life is Strange was a guaranteed money banking thing for Don't Nod constantly on their reports, on their financial reports.
Not just Life is Strange, but Max in Life is Strange was a sure thing bank.
They rolled the dice here. They rolled the dice, and it did.
But in their minds, they
tried to
didn't
get
roll the
6,
dice,
and they got a 1.
You know what I mean? Like in their minds, they didn't really roll the dice. Like that would be like investing into Amazon and then just like, getting trampled over. It's like, I thought that was a safe investment, but it turns out investment.
That was a safe investment. Let's be safe for that. If you invest in
That's
Amazon,
what I mean, though.
You're very safe.
That's what I mean, though. In their minds, that was like investing into Amazon.
Yeah.
Like we're going to put out a Life is Strange game with Max, who's voiced by Hannah Tell, right?
Yeah.
That's being developed by Deck 9, where people like their games, True Colors and BTS. In their minds, this was the safest investment possible.
Yeah.
And they did it right before the Game Awards cut off, so they could just like get in some Game Awards here and there. So like, yeah, it was a safe bet. But yeah,
that was the belief at Square Enix, though, that this was a safe investment to play.
This was safe,
but they missed certain things.
Yeah, it sucks. Like again, I want to go back on your point that like this is right before Christmas too. Sharing something else in my youth ministry days, I was laid off from my first church, first one 1 week before Christmas. That sucked, dude. Because like again, I'm not trying to say that getting a game development job is the same as trying to get a youth ministry job, but in the same realms, because it's not really something that's available right away. If I were to be, and I was laid off from the restaurants, right? And I got a job the next day because I'm a line cook. Being a line cook and being laid off, it's like, oh no, where's people looking for restaurant work? Oh, over there? Cool. Just go across the street. You're good.
Yeah.
But being a youth pastor, when they let me go a week before Christmas, like I was just trying to find work like anywhere, but like everybody's off or they're breaking for the holidays and they're just like,
by the way,
Yeah.
To interrupt you, that's the main thing here that people forget. Because what happens with game development studios in December?
They break off.
And then they break off. So basically, if you've been laid off now, and like the 6th of December, sorry, and let's say they close down in like a week's time, yeah, what happens then? You basically end up without a job whilst in that specific field until what, January, when they open up. So there's an entire window there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. You have to start your interviews in January, you know? Because they're not going to start interviews. Like, even if Jonathan Stauder, let's say he was, you know, for argument's sake, let's say he was laid off on this.
Yeah.
He needs to be a writer somewhere, right? And if he got laid off January 6th, puts in his application immediately.
Yeah.
If
he's in a good mind state, by the way, as well. Let's add up to that.
Yes.
If he's in a good mental state to be.
If he's a good mental state, because getting laid off from a job, I don't know if any of you have been laid off from a job. It kind of messes you up. I have been fired from a job and I've been laid off from a job. And let me tell you something, being fired, it's kind of like, oh, dang, that sucks, dude. But you have that fire in you. It's just like, man, screw them. When you get laid off, it does something to you, man. I've been laid off twice and it's just, it sucks, dude. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It just, it does something to your mental state. So to your point, let's say he's in a good mental state. He puts in his application. Let's say we're recording on Saturday. So let's say he puts it in Monday. That will be December 9th. People are about to break for December. So HR is going to get that application and they're going to put it in their drawers. They're going to be like, we're going to put this on file, you know, because I don't want to be here right now because I'm about to leave for my break. They're not going to do anything. They might do something, but I'm going to say 60% of the time, I'll even say 75% of the time, that HR person in the drawer until January, and then January. So when they say they break for holidays, Jonathan Stauder might have gotten his break in December, but the difference is now he's not getting paid. You know, this is a paid leave when you break for December. Now he's not getting paid. So it sucks, dude. Like, once again, I agree with his writing? No, and I disagree with him artistically. This is me talking to Jonathan Stauder as a person with a mortgage, you know? I don't know if he has a wife and kids. I don't know that, but he has the mortgage because he's joked about it, you know? So that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, being laid off sucks, but being laid off this close to Christmas when everybody's about to break, sucks even more. And you're in a job field that isn't always hiring. You know?
It's cutthroat, man. It's people that underestimate. Again, like I don't think I don't think that Jonathan Stauder was the right person to lead this game. But in itself as well, the other thing what people do with that as well, I'm like, who would you pick? To like, because it will be a conversation we'll have in our next podcast, but like, to the audience, who would you pick to take the series? Because you can say get him out and get someone else in there, but who are you picking next? Like, I've seen the behind the scenes in this game. It's like it'll blow your mind because you have to take yourself from a fan's perspective and then apply yourself to a video game development perspective. And if you don't have any awareness from that, and I only have very basic knowledge as well, I'm still learning things as well. Like, every day's a learning experience. I can be wrong about things. Of course I can be wrong about things, you know? I've said things that I've been wrong in the past. But it's like, you have to kind of like move forward and try and learn with it. And it's like with Stauder, for example, I didn't agree with him being the director. I think that the game has been a complete mess in certain respects. I think there's good qualities within the game, which have all been overshadowed, which have been broken, which have been kind of like, you know, caused into this mess, right? But ultimately, to be laid off before Christmas it sucks. Going into New Year, it sucks because there's a longer process to get it. People don't get, you know, guaranteed to come back into these jobs. Even Alejandro was at his job was at potential risk at Supermassive Games early this year. We've spoken about Alejandro, worked at Square Enix, worked on all the Life is Strange games, I think barring this one that came out. You know, and he look at his pedigree of work, and then he was at risk of it. People end up in risky positions with this. And what I really took like as a dislike from the online reaction was like, just remember that there's even those people that I've mentioned, those 4 people, they didn't have any creative input on this, yet they've been laid off.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you like gleefully like enjoying the fact that they've been laid off and this kind of thing? And as I said before as well, and I say it time and time again, if we lose Life is Strange, we could lose something completely, and it might never come back. Because not many games turn into Life is Strange now in terms of their success story, for people to play them, to have different stories, to have different games, anthologies in there. you lose that. The publisher could shelve it. People are like, well, don't know to buy it back. With what money? Have you looked at their financial reports? I look at their financial reports. What money are they going to do? Do you think Square Enix is going to lowball the IP? Do you not think they're going to ask for a premium price? Where's Oscar Gilbert going to get the money from after laying off all their staff whilst unions are pushing back against them? Is it easy in your mind? Because it really angered me a little bit yesterday because like seeing some of the reaction, I'm like, people at that studio are really good. And I'll be very transparent here. I speak to certain people at Deck 9, past, present, etc. They are really good people. You know, they are really good people. And just because you don't agree with the bureaucracy of the publisher and what they're saying, like, it just makes me like mad sometimes. I was showing Adam as well before someone replied to me on Twitter saying like, it's some conspiracy level theory you have here suggesting that Square is like putting things on the import of the story. It's like, are you that stupid? As we just established earlier in this conversation, are you that stupid not to think that the publisher has that much control over character's story, the interviews I've done on this channel, etc., the interviews that other people have done, if you connect the dots, you start seeing things. If a publisher owns something, that's going to be the decision. If I own the IP for Life is Strange and Adam pitched me the story, do you not think I would have my own input on it and start interfering?
They just see it at face value in the same way that like the whole Taylor Swift thing, like, oh man, she put out 5 different albums. She keeps putting out different things. She's owned by Universal, like UMG, one of the worst companies in the entire music industry. Like, they own her. Republic Records, also crappy company. I'm not saying she has nothing to do, like nothing. Sure. But UMG sucks, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just Taylor Swift. It's Taylor Swift, the image. And the same thing for here. It's not just Deck 9. You're just seeing it at face value. You know, you're just saying like, well, Deck 9's the face that I can point to and just dig into it. You're not seeing the background. You've never worked a job where you had to answer the boards. You know, you've never had a job where a CEO just comes in with this little suit on and just says like, I don't like this. Oh man, that was a hard 2 hours days of work. I'm going to go eat a sandwich and take a nap. You know, don't like CEOs, but that's just it. You know,
you talked about it. Do you remember you talked about it in the Don't Know the AI situation? One of the conversations we had on the StrangeCast episode. Yeah, it was the business develop. I think it was like the business development director or something. Like said to me, like, "Well, it's just suits. That's the suits opinion." And it's like it's the truth though, because like, I'm not defending like Deck 9 for all the things that have happened in this situation.
Absolutely not.
Like,
they still have something.
Yeah, and they're to be held accountable, and we held them accountable in the podcast episode where we did the review. I held them completely accountable for that. You held them accountable, but I also see which is the bigger picture, which is the bureaucracy, the stuff like this. And I even painted this image to Adam as well. It's like, you know, it's like if Michel did a sequel to Life is Strange 2, and he wanted to do it, and they're like, yeah, cool, green light it. And then Michel's like, oh, I've got these great ideas, and you know, I want Chris to come back, and Square's like, no.
Yep.
What's he going to do then? Because he can push back, and he might win. In terms of like saying, oh, we need it because of this, and that. And like, okay, but what if they say no? And like, no. It's like, oh. Mm-hmm. And you have to do something like that because it is that like, you know, that stuff you deal with. We've seen it with the comics as well, where it's like things change, things pivot, etc. Like that. It's like this the same happens with the games as well. It's like, you know, here's the line. It's like, for example, as well, even the writing process as well for narrative writers who are listening to this as well. You can write the story, right? You can write I've got no narrative experience. But what happens if someone comes over and says, well, we don't really like the idea that Max is the killer. Can you change that?
Yep.
What do you do? Like, but what do you do, Adam, honestly? Like, do you really think like that's like the original draft, for example? That's not been changed and had to like be modified and constantly changed? The process on this game, again, it's a big one, man. The video game industry is not... I've always talked about this as well. I left the video game industry years ago as a journalist because I was like, this isn't a safe space. It was the best decision I ever made because like it's not reliable, sustainable, etc. It's a hard graft, man. You make games, you get all this kind of stuff, and with me as well, I just kind of got a bit irked with the reaction because like people have lost their jobs here. You know, I didn't want Stauder to be the game director on the next game, if anything like that. But I was like, you could easily just move him into some other capacity or whatever else of it. I didn't want him to like lose his job. As he said, he's got probably like his own livelihood and stuff. It's difficult, man. He might be based in Colorado. How many game studios do you know that are based in Colorado, for example? Like, what happens then if he's like grounded? He's got a house. Do you uproot yourself? We had Stefan Frost on here. Do you remember when we talked about Frost talked about his entire life moving around the entire United States to get a job in game development? It's crazy, man. I just find it really weird. And I saw that with people saying like, Double Exposure 2 is already in development. It's like I think it was like some Reddit user that said it's like, Double Exposure 2 has already been in full production. And it's like, are you stupid? It's like, do you really think that they have who's making the sequel? Who's making the sequel? Who's directing it? 100 people are making 2 AAA video games. You tell me that. And if you try and argue me with the fact that you think Life is Strange isn't AAA, you're even more of a moron, because when Square Enix is added onto that, Square Enix is a AAA publisher. That's like saying Lost Records and Life is Strange are AA. No, they're not. They are not. Like AA is that is Donut, which is a publisher developer, and it's making its own game. But Donut is a AA studio compared to AAA behemoth Square Enix, which is a Japanese publisher. Like I'm kind of like we're gonna come to the end of this anyway, but I thought we'd just do a reaction video. But I feel so sad about this kind of news because again, if Life is Strange ends, what happens there? There's no guarantee that Lost Records is a success. Look at Banish. You talk about Banishers all the time. I always think about you talk about Banishers all the time. 0 Game Awards nominations. Probably 0 nominations at the BAFTAs that are going to happen next year. It was marketed by Bandai Namco. Or was it Bandai? Whatever they're called now. Bandai Namco. Focus Interactive. Focus Interactive was publishing it. Tried to do marketing for it. Didn't cut through. That was a publisher with Donut. Assets have been written down by Donut. And you're like, holy hell. And it's like Jusant, Twin Mirror, everything else barring Life is Strange 1 has never been a big success, barring maybe like a smaller success, which was Vampire. It's happened to Donut as well. Look at Donut at this point. Now they're now going to 2025 with an uncertain climate, with about 300 employees, which could probably drop even more if the reorganization project goes ahead with certain things. And the same with Deck 9 as well. Deck 9 has now got a big uphill task. I think you're right, Adam, as well. I think you said it to me either off podcast, on podcast, where it's like when people gleefully like enjoy this kind of stuff and think, I feel really, it tells me a lot about who you are as a person. Yeah. Because like I think you can criticize something, you push back on something, and you be respectful about it, and you show criticism and critiquing. But if you're gleefully enjoying yourself over someone losing their job, you need serious help. That's why I'm going to end this on, because I don't care if you never come back to this podcast again, whether you listen to us again, whether you watch something. I find it just deeply disrespectful that you can kind of see that with it. That's like me, for example, like, like I'm sitting here gleefully admiring the fact that Stauder has fallen from his grace because he was the game director and everything fell on his responsibility. Yeah. If you think that, again, you don't understand development, because he's only one person in a cog of an engine, which is brutal. And it shows as well. Again, not defending everything he did because he made his own mistakes, including the aftermath of all the PR interviews and stuff that happened. But there's a bit of like, show a bit of decorum, a bit of grace, a bit of dignity, a bit of other things, because people are human beings at the end of the day. Just because you didn't get your thing at the end of the day with the game, maybe they change. Maybe this is a wake-up call for Square Enix. Maybe Square does pivot. I think that they will pivot going forward. I still need to look into that, but I think they will pivot, because I think they have come to a very big awareness here that the game hasn't sold as well as they think it did. But to suggest like little baseless games, I just find it bizarre. I just find it really bizarre. The one with me was that, Double Exposure 2 is already done. It's like, and it's and I'm like what? Yeah. Because has Deck 9 ever done that with the cog in the machine that they've had with 100 people? I'd love to see you try and make 2 AAA games with 100 people at the same time, simultaneously management. But I just felt like when I saw it, I was like, this is like a big kick in the teeth of things. And it's like, again, as well, let me just end this as well, Adam, as well, because we'll end it here, and then you can add any other input. If you think that Deck 9's collapse or closure ends that Life is Strange series, you've got a really big wake-up call, because what happens if Deck 9 doesn't want to do this game? Square grabs its contracts, it goes over to the next developer, and it's like, can you make a Life is Strange game? And then you're stuck with what you get. It's just as simple as that. I didn't agree with the artistic direction of this game. I think there's huge systemic problems with this game. But in this, it's important to honestly remember what the bigger picture is here, about people losing their jobs in the holiday period, livelihoods on the line, things happen, and it's like, just show a bit of respect.
Yeah. No, that's just it. It's like, I don't think this is a lot of people are saying like, good, fine, bye. And they're going to say like, now it's going to get fixed. If anything, this puts Life is Strange on ice. Like Mass Effect was for a while, when EA just said like, oh yeah, BioWare, we don't know what we're doing. So we're going to put the Mass Effect series on ice, and we don't know, or the Dragon Age series, they put that on ice. And now we got Veilguard, which
Yeah.
mixed reviews. What I'm trying to put as here is that Square is now in a place where they don't know what to do with the Life is Strange series. And then again, if it's sold that poorly that they had to lay off staff a third time in 2 years, that's how poorly Double Exposure was.
The big thing, Adam, as well. One more thing as well to add on to this. Deck Nine have cut people before they even done this focus group, for example, in London, because they're doing the focus group paid research thing. Yeah. Deck Nine have already laid people off before even Square Enix has got the feedback in the bigger, and it's like, if that isn't something to tell you something, it's kind of like, you have to kind of put these things together. So it's like fair, all the points that you're saying that as well. It's like, it's important to like, I just again, I didn't agree with everything that they were saying in the interviews afterwards, like the Felice Kuan and like the John Stauders and stuff. But it's like,
but that's what I mean, though. Just
to say something here, Adam, as well. People think like, do you think that Square Enix isn't PR doing those interviews with PR? Do you not think Square Enix has like awareness of what questions are being asked, etc., etc.?
Do you think they're aware?
What are the people?
Yeah. Do you think they're aware?
Of course they're not. No, because they're just taking it at face value. That's again, this is what winds me up the conversations we have, because we try and ground it in the sense of trying to make you aware of it. So it's like, if you wanted to interview John Stauder, go and do it. What's the first thing he's going to say? He's going to say, "Oh, can you? I'm going to have to speak to someone at Square, see if we can do it, or Square will have to approve the interview." Do you think it's that easy for me to like? I had this for 2 years, Adam. People were saying to me early on when the channel started, "I can't wait for you to interview Michelle Coe or Luke Bargadas and stuff." I'm like, what do you think was going to happen when I asked them and be like, "Oh, Michelle, can you do a Life is Strange interview?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know, doesn't have any allegiance with Square Enix anymore. And if I did the interview, I'm probably going to have Square Enix because it's their IP and property." This is the guy who's co-created the franchise. He's the game director on the first 2 games.
Yeah.
But even he's not going to just kick out blasé interviews, is he?
This is why any kind of like indie artist is just like, man, I really wish I could make it. And I'm in the same boat. I want to make it as a game composer. Absolutely. But this is the downfall of that. Just like all of my music right now on Castle Garden is most silly crap that's out there, but I own it. There's no one breathing down my neck. There's no one to say like, well, we love the retro policy, but can you do it like this? Oh, we love the spooky EP, like, but can you just no, I own it. Like, no one's breathing down my neck. But what I was gonna say before is that I think this is an indication that this might be the first step where either the Life is Strange IP is going to be put on ice, or B, and even worse, sell it off, and it's going to be another sold IP to Embracer Group. Or Embracer Group is no more, isn't it? I think they're done.
There's something about them in the news. I can't remember. There was something in that news. I think, or did they sell the IPs again? They just did something. Or it was like layoffs or something. Can't remember. They have been in the news. I know what you mean. Yeah, but it's again that question. But also as well, what's that first one you said? Goes on ice, then you never see it again. Goodbye, bye bye. It's gone.
Exactly.
And it's like you might sit there and be like, "Oh, well, I don't ever want anyone to touch outside of Don't Nod." Well, I'd love to see Don't Nod pull up the money to find that IP, because all Square Enix is going to be like, "Well, cool, it's premium price, and you're going to pay for that if you want it." And it's like, again, as well, here's the other thing. Think about in development process, you bring the IP back. Is Michel going to work on it?
No.
Is or is he going to still be working on Lost Records in Canada? Or are they going to have to lend it off to another part of the French division? There's developers that have come and gone from Don't Nod as well. So it's like even the architects, the first two Life is Strange, they've moved on to other jobs, etc. Blah blah. Even like Marsha, who's working at Don't Nod Montreal and Lost Records, she's moved on. She was a big influence on the narrative part of Life is Strange 2. Not there anymore. So you lose like a lot of people. It's just a shame ultimately, because again, didn't agree with like all the stuff that was said in the interviews, didn't agree with thingy, but ultimately it's just, hand yourself a bit of a bit of dignity, and hopefully like Deck Nine can kind of carve a path forward with Square Enix being receptive, and also as well Deck Nine being receptive to feedback as well, because I hope that they're willing to change as well, because their processes need to change at the studio as well. My own belief of like how they work with things, I'm like, these things could easily be fixed, and your studio could run like an engine, for example. Like, look at The Expanse. I love covering that game, man.
Yeah.
we covered on the channel. I thought there was there were some of the lowest viewed episodes in terms of some number. I didn't care. I could enjoy sitting there for 2 or 3 hours talking to those people because the project came out as even if it was marred in between with the layoffs and stuff in that period, it still came across as really enjoyable and fun to play the games. It felt like I had an artistic vision and creative vision, etc. So, hopefully things go on. But I think we'll call it a wrap here, Adam, as well. Unless you have anything else to add.
Nope, nothing else.
Okay, let's call it under that wrap for an hour because otherwise it will turn into a full StrangeCast episode. Yeah. I only planned this to be 30 minutes anyway. But as I said, we'll be back in when we do come back. I think we're going to change the schedule so it might not have loads of news segments. It might just be a main topic segment, which I think will be alluding to some of the directors I think who should take over this series now at this point. But yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comment. Please be respectful in the comments. This is the first thing I'm going to timestamp if you start being a bit of a douche in the comments. This entire portion that I'm talking here, show a bit of respect. You can disagree. You can just say I didn't agree with everything he was saying, but I still feel sorry for him. I'm not trying to dictate your notes, but that's it.
And if they are disrespectful, I will bark back. That's the thing. If you're disrespectful, I'm barking back. So unless you want some of this, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're going to unleash the dog at this point onto the comments too. But yeah, please be respectful at least. That's all we ask for, if anything. We've seen that before, so thank you so much always as the support that you give us in any way, shape, or form. But we'll leave it here. I hope you enjoyed this episode anyway. The Lost Records Journal is out, by the way. As I said, you can go and check out that episode. We just did an entire reaction to the new trailer there. But I hope you enjoyed the episode. Let us know your thoughts if you did as well. And even if you didn't, you should like the video. You should share with your friends, comment, support the channel. It's always important for us. It helps us grow. It helps keep people up to date with us. You can check their content out that we do as well. And StrangeCast is available on all podcast services. So it's available on Spotify with the video version. It's available on Apple Podcasts. It's available on everything. So do go and check us out there. You can check out all the content. And you can follow us as we cover things. Sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on my cat. He's just waltzing around. I don't know if he was trying to jump off or not. But yeah, do rate us on there. Do follow us. It'll help you keep up to date with it. So stay tuned. We'll be back with StrangeCast the week after this one, which will come out. So again, as I said, things have changed. Apologies for anyone who follows me on Twitter. The Olivia Alabasi interview chat is coming. It'll now come on the Friday this week. I know that it was meant to come in this spot, so apologies about that. But this was an impromptu idea that I pitched to Adam. Yeah. But yeah, until next time, guys, take care. We'll see you later. Bye.
Later.
Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.